Forget books and language learning classes because this is the tool of the future. We sat down with Lewis Johnson, CEO of Alelo, to discuss how they're using AI to enhance the language learning process. Lewis and his team set out to give others the power of communication, eradicating the borders of foreign languages and making language learning as realistic and technologically possible through AI. We discuss the Alelo approach to learning, learn by doing, why humans have flaws too, not only AI. The possibilities of AI enhancing at such an incredible rate, and why we should be using robots for empathy building skills. Really? Did you hear that right? All this and more on Bright Founders Talk. Hello guys, and welcome to Brightest Founders Talk from Temi, an international software development company that designs, builds and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Today guys, we've got with us the president and CEO at Alelo, Lewis Johnson. Lewis, how are you?
I'm great, and pleasure to speak with you today.
Really good to have you here, and thank you for coming on so early. Well, early my side, okay? So 9 o'clock in the morning is quite early for me to start work. Lewis, what I want to do before we get into the world of everything that you're doing, I want to know a little bit about you. So your portfolio is pretty impressive. Tell me something about you which maybe not so many people know, or which you want our viewers to know.
So I have a background in linguistics and computer science, and a lot of the work that I do involves language and communication in various respects. I also have a training as an opera singer. You might hear a little bit of a baritone voice coming across. Nice. And I actually direct a choir here in Los Angeles on the weekends.
Wow, hands full, most definitely. Tell me a little bit more about the language learning for you, because obviously I've seen you've got a huge amount of languages that you know. Where did this passion for learning languages come from?
It was always something that I think was interested from a very early age. I started out as a language collector. So if you will, I was very fortunate. My high school is one of the few high schools where they taught Russian. So I started learning Russian, and then I said, well, they have a German class. Maybe I'll start learning German. And then they had a Chinese session. I said, well, maybe I'll learn Chinese. So, you know, I sort of did an inventory not too long ago. I think I've worked off in one way or another with about a couple dozen different languages. I can't speak them all fluently, but I have familiarity with them, including Ukrainian. I can read Ukrainian. I can't necessarily speak it very well, but I am very familiar with Ukrainian language and culture.
Nice. And really interesting there. I mean, I saw that there's Chinese on the list as well. You've got German, Russian. Yeah, very interesting list. And obviously that brings us into what we're going to be talking about today, and where this passion came from, and moving kind of your industry background, more or less so from the educational background, into this tech startup and the challenges that come with that. So tell me a little bit, where did this idea come up with? What was the idea for you to start building Alelo?
Well, as you know, it started when we started to see 3D video game technology, and we started to see speech recognition technology. And then I had this idea, well, what if you could create an immersive 3D game where you had to speak the language, talk with the game characters in order to be able to progress in the game. So that was the initial concept, to merge video game and AI natural language technology. Our first product was a prototype, was basically an immersive game, like a virtual Baghdad, where you could speak Iraqi Arabic with the characters in the game. Wow. And this is a way really to help people become familiar with the language and culture there in Iraq. And you know what we learned from this is, first of all, this is a very effective way to learn. You can learn, you know, it's simulation, learning by doing, but also, as you're interacting in the game or the virtual environment, it helps you build your self-confidence so that when you're in the real world situation, it feels familiar to you. You know that you can handle it. And so that's proved very effective. And so we then founded Alelo, and really the goal was to be able to commercialize this technology and then make it available to a wide customer base around the world to address a range of different problems in training and education, all having to do in one way or another with communication. And even beyond that, we find, we create virtual coaching avatars that can, like, if you're, say, learning about whatever, equipment safety, the avatar can ask you questions to probe your knowledge. So it can be even useful for something like that. The potential is huge.
I can imagine, as a language learner myself, obviously I started off with Russian and then Ukrainian, living in Ukraine. Something like that is amazing because it is that, the issue of moving the language learning from a textbook to real life. But if you've got that real life simulation kind of from the beginning, you literally go straight into it, and there's no difference in real life.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how it all started. Let's go right back to the MVP, the original MVP. What did it look like?
Right. So the initial MVP was built upon the Unreal Engine, for those in your audience who are familiar with that game engine. So basically, it was a series of scenes, episodes, where you would basically navigate your game character in this virtual world, and then you could walk up to other characters in the game and then start speaking with them. And then we interleaved that with other types of interactive learning activities that in some ways are similar to what you might see in other language learning apps, but with a high emphasis on speech technology, speech and language technology. Because basically, from the very beginning, from the get-go, we want you to get familiar with using the language, applying it in various situations. So for example, you might start out, okay, so here's a picture of a character on the screen, say hello to this character in Ukrainian, or say good morning. And if you do well with that, then enter the virtual world, walk up to a character on the street and introduce yourself. So sort of a natural progression toward real world application.
Tell me about that original MVP. How did you work on it? How many people did you have working for you at the time?
The initial MVP was actually, we developed it at the University of Southern California. So I had a research team there. There are about a half dozen people working on different aspects of the project. And it was sort of after that point, after we had and this, by the way, was funded by DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. So this is an agency in the US that kind of funds kind of moonshot concepts, right? So we developed the initial concept, and then DARPA worked with us to set up trials initially with US Marines. And so, we're in Los Angeles. There is a major Marine base that's a couple hours south of here called Camp Pendleton. And so we ran down there and did trials with Marines, and really got sort of the experience of seeing how this actually works with the people who really need this training. And at that point, we realized, well, okay, we need to spin this out of the university. We need to set up a private company that can scale this thing and develop it as a product. So that's how we did it. At Alelo, we initially developed basically game-like products that you would load onto your computer. Then we move the technology into the cloud. Okay. Now you can access it from your laptop or your mobile phone or what have you. And so that's a very convenient way for people anywhere to be able to access and use the platform.
And just remind you, was it 2005, if I'm correct, that it all started? When was the original?
That is correct. Yeah. Right.
So
So for several years, we were doing work mainly for the military, and then it was, I'd say, about 5 years ago that we then pivoted toward commercial applications. Our initial customers were like online schools, higher education institutions, but now we're getting a lot of interest from companies who want a better way to train their remote staff. So this has been an effect of COVID. Now that more people are working from home, they need a way to learn from home. So, for example, we provide training to public health workers. We provide training to customer service workers. What's the common theme here? That you need good communication skills in order to perform your job. So you can think of it, it's really kind of the same basic idea that we initially developed for the military, where in the military, you're using language to do your job, say, working with your Ukrainian forces counterparts. Now it's a different job, but it's the same. We found that the educational approach has a lot of application, even more now that occupations that require good soft skills, good interpersonal skills, that we see the demand there for the capability that we have to offer.
Tell me a little bit more about the tech side of it. So at the beginning, how did you build it? So how many engineers did you have? Did you outsource?
We have relied on an in-house engineering team. Now we do supplement it some with consultants with specialized expertise. But if you will, the core, we retain within our team the core engineering and learning expertise. We outsource like the accounting and the human resources and things like that, because those are not essential to our business. One thing which has changed, particularly since we moved to the cloud, is that we build on and leverage cloud-based AI services. At the beginning, we developed the whole technology stack, the AI part of the technology stack ourselves. Now it's a combination of our own technology and then what we can get from cloud-based cognitive services providers. And I think that gives us the kind of the best of both worlds, because we can then take advantage of improvements in the technology, but then we can then focus on the particular aspects of the technology that are unique to our particular problem. And there are two aspects to that problem. One, of course, is that we need technology that is accessible and reliable with language learners. So that's number one. So we have to we collect a lot of data around the world from for example, learners speaking English and looking at the kinds of mistakes that they make. And then the other thing is that analytics, measures of performance, of proficiency, of competency, these are a key aspect, if you will, a key output of the interaction with our technology. So you can think of it as that in some ways our avatars are like, they build on chatbot and speech technology, but at the end of the conversation, the system has developed a profile of your proficiency. You're not going to get that just interacting with some chatbot. So I think that's an aspect of the technology that is unique to us, if you will.
I guess a lot of the time this kind of, as you're saying, they're hybrid, yeah, kind of hybrid approach after you've created what you wanted to at the beginning. It gives you a lot of kind of movement, places to go where you can concentrate on the other bits and pieces whilst something else happens elsewhere. Tell me, let's speak a little bit about the challenges. Obviously, crazy futuristic kind of product which you've got going there. I mean, it seems like it's only the beginning of a new way of learning a language. What has been the biggest challenge so far for you at Alelo?
There have been rapid swings in the market, and so we had to adapt to that. So like,
do you know
COVID,
why?
What's that?
Do you know why? Why the
Well, let's give some examples. And I think the COVID pandemic was a good example. So when COVID hit, international borders shut down. And so international travel shut down. Mm-hmm. So the demand for language learning went down for a while. On the other hand, there was suddenly a demand for training that would help people reskill for new jobs. So there was a period, remember, when everybody was, when COVID was shutting the economy down and people were looking for new work. They were looking for ways to rapidly learn new skills. So we pivoted toward that. And then the economy bounced back. And so there wasn't as much of a demand for people, looking to change occupations. Although that this rapid skilling technology, the basic approach, there's still a demand for it. So it's like on one hand, the challenge is, we're developing the technology, then we're developing the platform, but the demand signals change, and they can change rapidly. So we had to, and continue to have to, pivot quite a bit to make sure that we're hitting where the current sweet spot in the market is.
Absolutely. With this, obviously, we're talking challenges here, and you're talking about the avatars that you've created and the AI behind this. What has been the most difficult challenge you have faced AI-wise?
I think that, AI has made, and natural language processing has made great strides. It still has a ways to go.
Yeah.
And I think it will continue to have a ways to go for a long time in the future. Mm-hmm. So one of the challenges that we have always had is setting expectations right for the user. So once you give people the idea that, okay, here's this avatar that you can talk to, then they imagine, well, okay, I can talk with this avatar about any topic I like. Mm-hmm. and then at that point, you can easily find the limitations of the technology. So the way we address that is that we all, our technology is oriented toward what are known as task-based conversations. Okay. So let's say, for example, we're creating a simulation of a train station. So you're going to go into the train station in Lviv and buy a train ticket. Okay, so you then need to go to talk to the avatar at the window and tell her where you want to go and how much you want to pay, etc. That avatar, it knows how to talk about train tickets. It doesn't know how to talk about existential philosophy or what have you. But users quickly understand, well, I'm here to buy a train ticket, so I'll talk with the avatar about my train ticket.
I mean, in real life, I would never speak to a train conductor about those kind of things, So yeah.
That's right. That's right. So sort of designing the user experience to, taking into account the limitations and the evolving limitations of the AI technology, I think, has been a key part of our success. What got me interested in this whole area in the first place is that, you know, in the early days of applying artificial intelligence to education, it was applied to kind of well-structured subject areas. So, for example, mathematics. There were these intelligent tutors that developed that would help you, you know, with your math problems. And I looked at this and I said, well, that's good, but interacting with other people is not like mathematics. But we have this technology that can simulate human interaction in a controllable, repeatable, measurable kind of way. That is where I saw a big opportunity, and it continues to be an area of great interest to me. I think it's really interesting. We can apply this algorithmic technology to help develop soft skills, communication skills, empathy skills that we think of as being the most human of skills, right? But we can use technology to help to develop them.
Tell me with that, how far do you feel we are away from getting closer to that kind of level of AI? What level are we at now, and where would you, okay, you would love to be at having AI speaking like a human, thinking independently, but realistically, maybe now for 5 years, how much is it going to advance?
Well, you know, it's been advancing pretty fast. I think that within narrow areas and purposes, you know, that's where we see AI developing quite rapidly. And as I know you probably know, for a long time, you know, like chess playing programs, for a long time they weren't as good as the human grandmaster, and then they shot past them. And now a computer is far superior than any human in terms of playing chess. I expect we will continue to see that in other narrow areas, narrow tasks. I think a general purpose intelligence, or general intelligence, as it's sometimes referred to, I think is still a long way off, but you never know. I think things have been moving surprisingly fast, and there are, you know, we are seeing increasingly program systems that put on a good, impressive imitation of general intelligence. And I think, by the way, this is something, you know, that people, you know, those of us who have worked in AI for a while, we recognize that people are easily fooled by things that look in intelligence. They just, once you kind of give it a human-like face and interaction, people kind of imagine that they're interacting with a sentient being. And, you know, there's been some discussion, like in the news, about, you know, there was a guy at Google said, well, gee, my program, it has consciousness. And I think, no, it doesn't have consciousness. It fools you into thinking it has consciousness. But, you know, there are a range of applications where giving the impression of human-like ability is good enough, as long as you don't kind of probe too deeply into what this avatar knows and thinks. Then you're probably doing okay. So that kind of gives you a sense of limitations. I guess one other thing I would say is that, you know, some of the things that are easiest for humans can be the hardest for technology, for AI. You know, like when you're driving, it's very easy for you as a driver to tell, okay, that is a parked car, that is a moving car, that is a billboard. Oh, but those distinctions are still kind of hard for computers to make, and they sometimes make mistakes. And so that's kind of the Achilles heel of the technology, which will limit its ability to interact with people with kind of the breadth of knowledge and experience that you and I have.
So interesting. I mean, it's really interesting to see how much it has advanced literally in just such a short time, and how quickly it's now advancing even more so. Tell me, in regards to training and retraining your AI models, how often do you do it, and how do you go about doing it?
So this is one key of our cloud-based data-driven approach, is that we're constantly collecting data of our avatars interacting with learners. And we are constantly measuring the avatar's performance. So we collect statistics of sort of how frequently is the avatar able to understand and respond to what the learner, what the person said.
Interesting.
So then it's really on an as needed basis. We kind of look at these analytics and we say, this, these avatars are having trouble communicating with Ukrainians. Well, why is that? Then we pull a selection of data and of those interactions, and then human annotators will annotate that data. And then we may discover, oh, okay, there's this common language mistake that Ukrainians are making, and so we need to make provision for that. So just give you, and this an example comes to mind, and this is not from Ukrainian, but is from Serbian, which has some similarities to Ukrainian. So for example, we see from our Serbian learners that they often make mistakes with prepositions. They get the word order subtly wrong. So like going back to the train station example. So, a Ukrainian might say, instead of saying, I want to leave on May 1st, he might say, I want to leave at 1st May. Okay, wrong preposition, wrong word order, because in Serbian, and I think this is in Ukrainian as well, the first it goes before, the word for first comes before the word for May. So that is a common mistake. So those, if we see issues in terms of performance, it could be because there's some sort of common pattern of mistake that we then need to adapt and retrain the model to be able to recognize and respond to.
Tell me a little bit more. This is more of a personal note, personal kind of question to you. What would be the advice you would give to other people starting out on now this AI journey in the tech industry? What would be your advice? What do they need to be aware of?
Well, I think first of all, in terms of skills that you need, of course, programming is essential, but ability, understanding of data, of statistics, these are now fundamental skills for somebody working in this area. I think in general, you have to develop your skills as a lifelong learner. Let us say, in other words, it's not like you go to AI school and then you have what you need in order to be able to work, use AI in your career. AI is constantly changing. The technology is changing. You have to be prepared to grow and develop your skills as the technology develops. So I think those are some of the things to keep in mind. If you can develop your skills of sort of being a self-motivated learner to kind of pick up what you need as you go, then you will be able to evolve as the as the field, as the technology evolves.
This is probably why one of the many reasons, but one of the reasons why Alelo has been so successful, because obviously as a language learner yourself, it is that kind of idea of constant learning forever. You never learn the language.
And in speaking personally, people have commented that I am huge lifelong learner. I'm always learning new stuff, and that has served me well in this career, and I think it would serve anybody well in this area.
Nice. Okay, last question for you, Lewis. Last question. What has been the most valuable thing that you have learned on your journey from professor education into the tech industry? What could be that thing that you could share with our listeners, which you've got now, which maybe you didn't have at the beginning?
I think, I've got a much better understanding of the skills that you need to work with people. So I think that, and when you get started in technology, you think, oh, okay, well, it's the technical skills that are going to really carry you forward. But no, it's the people skills that you will ultimately need. Fortunately, I've got avatars to help me learn those skills. But I think that's been kind of a key thing, particularly after I left academia. I did a lot of sort of learning of, leadership skills. How do you communicate with people effectively to motivate them? How do you communicate complex ideas in a simple way? This is something that they never teach you at the university, but which is essential in business and in most walks of life, I would say.
It's really interesting speaking with you, because it seems like your mission is very much you're all about communication and giving one message to another. I mean, obviously you spoke at the beginning with obviously singing as well, and
right.
That's exactly the same thing. And what you're doing now with languages to AI, that seems like it's your mission. Very, very interesting.
Thank you. Best wishes to everybody in Ukraine.